Hi everyone, welcome to Cooking with Chef Rich. Today we are going to be making a walnut cake. It's a homemade cake, totally from scratch, homemade fresh whipped cream. It has candied walnuts in it, really delicious cake. So let's jump right in. All the ingredients will be listed in the description below. And let's start. So the first thing we're going to do for this cake is we have to make some candied walnuts. To do this, I have half a cup of water, half a cup of sugar, and about 7 ounces of walnuts. So I'm just going to be putting this in a pot. I'm going to add the sugar. And we're going to bring this up to a boil, and we're going to boil it for about 8 minutes. And I'll show you what it looks like in 8 minutes. Hi everyone, so we're back. So this is actually called a simple syrup. Sugar mixed with water and then simmered is called simple syrup. This is actually reduced down to about 3/4. You'll notice there's just a little bit in there. I'm going to be pouring this over the walnuts in a second. You'll notice it's actually like a syrup. It's a little bit visc. It's not like water. First thing we have to do is we have to spray our sheet pan. If you don't spray your sheet pan, you will hate life. Trust me. Once the sugar sets, you won't be able to get the walnuts off the pan. So you definitely need some cooking spray. Anyway, what we're going to do, you'll notice it's reduced down quite a bit. And it was simmering, it wasn't boiling. So that's very, very important. I'm going to mix this up. Basically coating all the walnuts. Then we're going to be putting this in a 375-degree oven, probably for about 10 minutes, I'm going to guess. Might be 15. Because of the sugar, it sticks, but that's all right. Try to separate it a little bit. You can. And that's pretty good. And we're just going to put this in the oven for about 10 minutes, I'm guessing. I'll see you shortly. Hi everyone. So our candied walnuts were in the oven for just under 15 minutes, maybe 13 or 14 minutes. You notice that all the liquid is totally dry, and this is actually all sugar in here, which is fine. I'm just going to take this while it's still hot. I'm just going to loosen it a little bit. Just make sure it doesn't stick to my pan. And as long as it's not sticking, it's fine. I'm just going to put this aside and let it cool totally. And once it's cool, I'll show you what to do with it. See you in a bit. So now we're going to make the cake part of our walnut cake. I'm going to run through the ingredients. As always, the ingredients will be in the description below, but I'm just going to run through all the ingredients. First off, we have walnuts. And what we're going to do with our walnuts is we're going to put these actually in a food processor right now. And over here, this is cake flour. I'm just going to take a handful of cake flour. We want to puree the walnuts. The cake flour is going to keep it from clumping. So I'm just going to take some and throw it right in there and turn on our machine. You notice that I kind of just gave it a little bit of a shake while it was mixing, and that's fine. Basically, it's just going to give it the cake a walnut flavor because it is a walnut cake. The next thing we have is cake flour. It needs to be sifted. I'm just going to sift it through a regular strainer. If you have a cake sifter, that's great. If you don't have a cake sifter, just put it through a strainer. Gets all the clumps out of the flour. Like so. The next thing I have 10 eggs separated. Very specifically, I put the egg whites in a metal bowl that was perfectly dry. You never put egg whites in ceramic or plastic, always in metal. And make sure it's perfectly dry and clean. I also have some both regular water and some oil. You don't have to mix it like this. I just don't like to dirty too many things because I have to wash it when I'm done. And I had said that this is cake flour. For those of you who are not familiar with cake flour, you can buy cake flour in your flour aisle at whatever supermarket you go to. This is, was it Swan's Down? There's also Soft as Silk, so you can use either one of them. What cake flour is, it has a lower gluten content than an all-purpose flour or bread flour. So for a cake, you definitely, if it calls for cake flour, you definitely want to use the cake flour. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to take our egg whites and we're going to whip them to be soft peak. I'm gonna put them on. So you'll notice as this is mixing, it's starting to get little peaks and valleys, which is what we want. This is just gonna mix for another 20 seconds maybe. That's pretty good. We'll take this out. We have our cake flour over here. Just gonna pour this right on top of our cake flour. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add our eggs and oil. You don't have to wash the bowl or anything. Gonna add our egg yolks. And we're gonna add our sugar. For this, we're gonna be using a flat beater as opposed to the whisk. Start off very slowly or you'll be wearing it. So this is going to take 3 to 5 minutes of mixing. And basically we want it to get nice and foamy and thick. So I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So I actually did screw up a little bit. I put the whisk back on as opposed to the flat beater. So I did that right in the beginning, and this has been mixing for about 4 minutes. I'm gonna put it on just so you can see what it looks like. If you watch it, it's all together. It's rather visc and almost creamy, if you will. So that's pretty good. I'm gonna take this off. We're gonna put this, we have our flour, our egg whites. I put it next to the egg whites, not right into the egg whites, because I don't want to take the air out of the egg whites. The last thing I'm going to add to this are our walnuts that have been pureed. Now I'm just going to fold this all together. You'll notice I'm constantly turning the bowl. You want to try to do this gently, as you don't really want to knock the air out of the egg whites. You notice I'm using a nice turning motion. That's why it's called folding, because you're literally folding it in. If you look right over here, there's still one more clump of flour. You want to make sure there's no clumps of flour. And once there's no more clumps, you're done. So this looks pretty good. I'm just gonna go one more time all the way around. Over here I have 2 10-inch cake pans. They are 10-inch cake pans. I've lined the bottom with parchment, and I have sprayed with cooking spray the sides. So you can either use cooking spray or grease, like Crisco or something, butter. I'm gonna go approximately 50-50. Try my best to do 50-50. Looks pretty good. So in other videos, you see me pick these up and kind of whack it down on a table so it settles. With this, because it has air, we've whipped both the egg yolks and the egg whites. We don't want to bang it, because what that's going to do is, imagine taking a bubble and banging it, the bubble will go flat. So we want the air in here to help the cake rise. So we're not going to bang it on the table. And I'm going to be putting this in a 375-degree oven, and I will let you know when I'm done how long they were in for. See you shortly. So our walnut cakes just came out of the oven. They were in the oven 375 degrees for right about 22 or 23 minutes. You notice they're nice and brown on top. The next thing we're gonna do, and these are still burning hot, I'm just gonna take a knife and kind of release the sides. Just gonna go all the way around. This cake has a tendency to shrink just a little bit, and by releasing the sides, it doesn't actually break. Sometimes the sides stick a little bit. Once this is done, I'm just gonna put these aside. I'm gonna let them cool for at least an hour before I work with them, and I'll show you what we do with them when they're cool. Thank you. So our walnut cake is nice and cooled, and we're gonna start working with it. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna cut it in half. For the most part, I'm going right in half of it. And you'll notice that my knife is going back and forth, but my knife isn't moving. Once I've gone all the way around, now I'll start to go through a little bit. But once again, the cake is moving, not the knife. Put that right over there. So over here we have our candied walnuts that we made earlier. I'm gonna put these in a food processor. You can put it in with the sugar won't hurt it. We're gonna puree these so they're very, very fine. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take some heavy cream. We're gonna put it up to mix. So our whipped cream is whipping, and as soon as it starts to get a little bit thick, you'll notice that you'll see light peaks in here. We're gonna add our vanilla and our powdered sugar. Just 10x sugar, powdered sugar, confectioner's sugar sometimes. If you haven't figured out, what we're doing is we're making a whipped cream, and it's actually gonna be a walnut whipped cream. So what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be taking the pureed sugared walnuts and folding this in. Now you'll notice as it's mixing, it's starting to get thick. It's almost done. You can over whip whipped cream and it will actually turn to butter. So you have to be careful at this point. What I'm gonna do, like the top of it actually looks done, but the bottom of it is still probably loose. I make whipped cream all the time and I know the bottom is still a little bit loose, so I'm just gonna give it a quick mix. And I'm gonna put this up for just probably another 5 seconds, 10 seconds. And that's good. We're gonna take this off. You'll notice when I go like this, like it stands up. I'm gonna take my walnuts, fold it in. That's pretty good. You don't want to mix it too much because, as I said, you can turn it to butter. That's good. So first thing we're gonna do is a nice layer right in the middle. Maybe just a drop more. You actually want it to go over the edge a little bit, because when I'm icing it, it'll make my life a little bit easier if it goes over the edge. We'll just kind of smooth it out. Doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. Put it on a plate and it's sliding. So if that happens, what you can do is just take a little bit of your whipped cream, put it right there, and it should hopefully keep it from sliding so much. That's pretty good. You also have some paper towels ready because I always use paper towels when I'm icing a cake. Next, we're going to put our top layer on top. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to put some icing. Just going to go back and forth. You want a little bit of a thick layer. That way when we try to get it all nice and straight, there's enough to work with. If it's too thin of a layer, the cake will be showing through. Looks pretty good. So now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to clean my spatula really well. Hold that thought. You're gonna make sure you dry your spatula thoroughly. And now I'm going to heat up the spatula a little bit. Don't go nuts heating it. First thing I'm going to do is the sides. Heat up the spatula a little bit more. Now, when the whipped cream comes off with the spatula, you know it has to be heated a little bit more because whipped cream will never stick to a hot spatula. All right, that's pretty good. Just go get my hands clean. And in a second, we'll work on the top. So once your spatula is clean, I'm gonna heat it up again. Starting from almost the side, just go across it. You notice how the whipped cream literally melts, but it gives it a nice, smooth. Good. So it should be nice and smooth. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark it in half. Half again. Not big lines, or not thick lines I should say, but just so we know where to put our rosettes. This is a 10-inch cake. Normally it gets cut into 16ths. All right, it's pretty good. Hold that thought. So at this point, I'm taking the remainder of my whipped cream and put it in a piping bag with a star tip. And our cake is finished. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Please leave your comments below. Thank you. Have a great day. Be safe.